we want to promote calm and coping and promote the service of the church in caring for our members. That's why we chose to go ahead and do this. I'm going to talk for just a second about how I learn as an adult. I tend to learn best when there's some real structure. So I have written down some visual aids. I'm not sure they're showing up very well. And when we get to the picture, I want you to remember one thing for me, would you? I'm a scientist. I am not an artist. So forgive me for the quality of my visual aids. Hopefully they get the point across. So just quickly on this page, if you're not seeing it well, it says introduction, then it says me, I already did that, and then it says how to cope smart. That's the title, I guess, of the presentation. Use the knowledge that you need to cope in an effective fashion, keep healthy, and reduce your anxiety, if you have any. And to that end, I'm going to go over some very basic medical information. I'm going to go over the immune system, how these germs come about and grow, how they spread, and how we can stop it. So, like I said, real basic stuff. We'll start with your immune system, and some of you may know that you have cells in your body that fight germs. There are several different kinds, but they all have the ability to remember the shape of a germ. A germ gets in your body, it gets imprinted on these memory cells, and then your body forevermore remembers that, and boom, if another germ comes that looks like that, they jump out and fight it. That's what vaccination does, that's what immunity does. That's the reason the coronavirus is spreading so fast, is because none of us has immunity. Nobody. It's a brand new germ, nobody's ever seen it before, and boom, if you get exposed, you don't have any natural immunity to it. But many of the symptoms that we experience when we have an infection are a result of the immune response. The fever, the coughing, and congestion are all functions of our bodies fighting off this illness. So, it is to be expected. Now let's talk for just a second about germ genesis. How did this brand new germ just happen upon us? Some of you may be old enough to remember when we were kids, when I was a kid, we had these puzzles in a frame and they were tiles and you moved them around to spell letters and such. Okay, keep that visual in mind. Germs, viruses especially, have an outside coating of a variety of different proteins. And these proteins have the ability to rearrange themselves, just like the tiles in that little frame, and come up with a completely new configuration. That's how the flu virus changes every year. It gets a new surface coating protein configuration. So we have to figure out what that is to make our vaccine every year. Well, the coronavirus has come up with a completely new configuration that has never ever been seen. And from here on out, we will have some immunity on the planet, but for right now we don't. Infection cycle. Okay, here comes the first video aid. Hang on. This is something that many of you may have learned in biology or in any kind of a healthcare class, and it's a series of 6 circles that we travel through in a cyclical fashion, and at the top you have the germ, the organism, in this case the coronavirus. On the next one, next circle, you have the reservoir. The reservoir is where the germ lives. Well, the germ lives in infected people. And it's got a huge reservoir right now, and that's how it's the virus has gotten into the cells of these people and is growing and replicating. And the next circle is a route of escape. Well, when a cell is infected with the virus and the virus replicates inside, it fills up like a seed pod or something, and it ruptures, and the new baby virus particles spread throughout the human host. And if you have like an abscess, well, it's in the wound drainage. If you have a respiratory infection, it's in the air that you breathe out. I'll go over that just a little bit more here. Transfer. Down here. There are a certain set number of ways that microorganisms can be transferred from victim to victim or from human to human. With this particular virus, there is not a whole lot of science, but the best science that we have says it's probably spread by droplet infection. You may have heard of that. That's the way influenza is spread. When you cough or sneeze, the germ that is in your respiratory secretions goes out into the environment. It travels a number of feet, and then the water droplets or the moisture droplets are heavier than air, so they fall. So if you're more than 5 feet from somebody that coughs, you may not get the virus all the way to your mucous membranes where it can infect you. But it can drift down on the surfaces, and if you touch the surfaces, it can live on your skin for a certain amount of time. And then if you open the door where somebody's got infected mucus droplets, and then you rub your eye, touch your nose, whatever, then that organism gets to the skin that you can be infected through. Intact, dry skin is a very good barrier for almost all infections. But your eyes, your mucous membranes, your mouth, your respiratory tract, those are all areas where the germ can get in. That's the entry point. Eyes, mouth, nose. This is not something you get from food, but still you're going to be clean about your food. Okay. The next step in the cycle is called a susceptible host. Well, who's a susceptible host? I already told you, none of us has immunity to this virus, so we're all susceptible in that sense. What is another thing about susceptibility? Well, we all have our own state of underlying health. You keep hearing about high-risk groups. Well, what is a high-risk group? Over the age of 60, people with underlying health conditions like diabetes or heart disease or respiratory disease. The thing to remember about this is that the coronavirus in and of itself is just not that deadly. It's a fairly mild respiratory illness. And just like a healthy person can survive a bout of influenza with discomfort, a healthy person can survive a bout of coronavirus with discomfort. Someone who has diabetes or heart disease, who has a weakened immune system, who is more susceptible to side effects, can develop heart failure, respiratory failure, those kinds of things. That's why we are more particular about frail and elderly people when it comes to infections. And again, even though we don't have any immunity to infection, to this particular infection, I would like to point out that as we grow older, all of us have a phenomenon called immunosenescence. I love that word. It means that our immune system is getting older and doesn't work as well. So the older you are, the less able you are to fight off any infection, including this one. So that brings us all the way back to the germ. The germ has gotten in your body and it's happily replicating inside of your cells, waiting for you to send it on to the next person. That is the infection cycle. Every step in this cycle has to be met for this disease to spread. Every single one. So many of our efforts are focused on interrupting the cycle. Well, how do we interrupt the cycle? The easiest way to interrupt this cycle is at the point of transfer. If you don't have a mechanism of transfer, then the germs can't get into the new host. And bingo, no new infections. We are doing social distancing. It's what you keep hearing about. The closing down of churches and schools and government agencies. We are keeping away from people. We are eliminating avenues for the infection to spread. This is a tried and true public health method, folks. Even though most of us weren't alive to experience this, we had a massive flu pandemic in 1918. The Spanish flu killed thousands and thousands and thousands of people all around the world. And there is some historical data on social distancing used in that pandemic. Two cities were compared, Philadelphia and Detroit, some other big city. St. Louis, thank you. So Philadelphia did not use any social distancing strategies in response to the pandemic and had a massive outbreak with large numbers of deaths. And in St. Louis, watching Philadelphia learn from their mistake and instituted social distancing measures within 3 days of the first case and had much, much, much lower numbers of people infected and as a result, many fewer deaths. That's what we're trying to do, people. It's horribly inconvenient. It reminds us of the Black Plague of the Middle Ages. You know, everybody's under quarantine. You can't go in that town, blah, blah, blah. Well, it's not like you're going to think of the economies of scale. Think of a football stadium with how many ever thousands of seats. One person sitting in there is not going to spread their germs to anyone. If you have a person in every third section, nobody's going to share a germ with anyone. If you have 150,000 people crammed in there and 2 people in that stadium have coronavirus, they potentially can spread it to 6 to 10 other people. Okay? And of course it takes more than an hour to spread, but then you think about the possibility of those 6 to 10 people. If each one of those infects 6 to 10 people when they're in a crowd, and then each one of those, it's like that old game where you double a penny every day and in a month you're a billionaire. Well, guess what? The virus does the same thing. If you double it every third or fourth person, it turns into ridiculously high numbers of infected people. So keeping away from other people, minimizing the amount of time we spend in crowds is key. That's why the schools are closed. Governor Inslee, bless his heart, listened to people and said, okay, it's time to take this drastic step. It's terribly inconvenient. It's horribly inconvenient, and my heart goes out to all the parents that are struggling with that. It really does. Quick word about washing your hands. Why does washing your hands kill the germs so effectively? Well, soap and water dissolves the oil that binds germs, dirt, and other things to your skin. So you wash your hands with soap and water. The germs are quite simply washed away and flushed down the drain. And there's some research that says the fat in the soaps, the grease in the soaps, also directly attacks the microorganism's ability to live. So washing your hands is the single most effective way to remove the virus from your body on the outside. Alcohol-based hand sanitizers are a good substitute. They're best used in conjunction with hand washing. Like you get up in the morning, you wash your hands, and then like every hour you hand sand or whatever. But wash your hands regularly throughout the day. Any kind of soap will do. Washing the dishes will do. Tide, Dial, I don't care. Any kind of soap will wash this germ off your body. Animals, so far, have not been shown to be infected. And if I may end this presentation with a slight joke, because I'm a joker, the World Health Organization posted that information online that dogs have been shown not to be susceptible to this virus. All dogs that are in quarantine may be released. Who let the dogs out? Sorry guys, I got wrapped up in my joke and I forgot about the resources. But anyway, for the resources, let me flip the page. Probably your best resource if you have a question about your own personal health is your healthcare provider. Other places you can go. NIH.gov, National Institutes of Health website, has very good information with very easy to read format. CDC.gov is a little less easy to read, but it also has masses of good information. The MayoClinic.org has a lot of very patient-friendly, easy-to-read information. If you want to email me, I put down my email address here. It's a2jdiva@aol.com. Now, if I get 75,000 emails, you're not getting an answer. But I'll do what I can. I had a thought that just went straight out of my head. Don't you hate that? So hopefully that gives you everything you need to get the information that you need to make the choices that you need to stay healthy. Be well.